I'd like to introduce to you an extraordinary woman and a very dear friend of mine. She is incredibly knowledgeable about women's health. And if I could cue the slide, please. She's going to be talking about women's health, but specifically focusing on breast health. And this is a topic that I wanted to address during this conference because I feel it's very important. How many people know someone or have had breast cancer? Okay, so that's the majority of the room. It's something that we need to address. And if you look at the statistics here, every 23 seconds a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer. 1 in 8 women in the US will develop invasive breast cancer during their lifetime. Breast cancer is the second leading cause of death in women with respect to cancer, and it's estimated by the American Cancer Society that this year alone, 39,620 women will die of breast cancer. So those are the sobering statistics right now. And one of the reasons why I wanted to address it was because breast cancer has hit close to home this year. My mother was diagnosed with it, and I found out the day I gave birth to my daughter that she had breast cancer, and she chose to get a mastectomy, and she was going to get a double mastectomy, but through doing our research, we came to the determination that it was unnecessary. But there's a lot of women out there that are threatened by cancer because of family history, and some are being very aggressive in their approach, and they're getting double mastectomies even though they themselves don't have cancer. Has anybody heard about this? Yes. Okay, so there's women going out and getting a single mastectomy or a double mastectomy because of family history. But what I mentioned last night, the study of epigenetics, again, learning how to switch certain genes on and certain genes off can influence what's going on in our bodies. So Dr. Garner is going to come up and she's going to speak to that topic and also talk about ways that we can find out about what's going on in our bodies in a way that is more conducive to having good health, okay, rather than going the mammogram route, for example. So this is what we're going to dive into. Please pay rapt attention for this extraordinary woman. She's the founder of Simply Vibrant, a revolutionary new concept in natural health. And what it does is it empowers individuals with common sense solutions for vibrant living, which she refers to as earth medicine. Her postdoctorate focus has been in the field of epigenetics, expanding her knowledge base in the areas where individuals have influence over the expression of genes, including detoxification, nutrition, and adapting to stress. How many people experience stress? Right? Even like, I gotta get to yoga. We're all stressed like trying to get to yoga, right? There's a lot of stress going on, and that affects us on a cellular level. So she's going to speak to that as well. Right now, she's incredibly passionate about her research and clinical applications in the new and exciting field of earthing. And we're going to be handing out some patches to get everybody grounded so we're all going to be connected to the earth for the rest of the weekend. Please, if you could stand up and give the warmest of Women's Wellness Conference welcomes to Dr. Christy Garner.
Thanks, honey bun. Good morning. It's so nice to be here with you first thing in the morning so we can just all collectively get ready for an amazing day. So Rebecca was kind enough to introduce you. Many faces out there I recognize. It's nice to see friends. And for all of you who are new, it's really great to get to know you. It's funny, as I was walking up, it just hit me. People always ask funny questions before you go on stage. And the one thing people always ask me is, are you nervous? I don't know if I look nervous, but I guess it's a common question. And I realized that the feeling I get before I come up here is not nervousness about speaking. I was born to do this. I love this more than anything. It's the pressure of this clock. There's this clock that ticks, and it ticks at me. And it's almost that feeling of, when you have a really dear girlfriend, but you haven't spoken to her for 6 months, and like you have this window of time between like doing the laundry and picking up your child at school, and you want to slam in a conversation. That's the feeling. That's what I feel right now. It's so nice, and I have so much I want to share with you. So I'm just going to let you know ahead of time in this conversation we're going to have. We're going to get as much as we can in, and there's probably going to be a gazillion things that I can't cover, and we'll just catch that on the next phone call together. So we're going to take on one of my favorite topics today, which is how can we defy our DNA? And this is something that is so near and dear to my heart, because in my private practice, I work with a lot of people who are the hopeless of the hopeless. So I'm kind of last stop shop. And so I see, for many years, I specialized in children with autism. I work with a lot of late stage cancer. My practice in Long Island is really close to Sloan Kettering. So I see a lot of late stage cancer, a lot of autoimmune, MS, lupus, anything that they just don't know what's going on. And the challenge and the reason why I've become so knowledgeable about this area is because when you're trying to help these people have been told there's nothing you can do because it's genetic, then all you have as a practitioner is to figure out how to turn off those damn genes. And so that's what I've been focusing on in my years of practice. So we're going to go through today some different ideas of how you can very practically, I want to take this out of theory and say, what can you do this afternoon, tomorrow morning, on an everyday basis for you and your family to have this peace of mind to know that you're really doing everything you can to express the greatest version of yourself in your kids. So I just wanted to first address, before we jump into this, change. I think we all are aware that we're in this swirl of change, right? I have a new name, which connects me to a new amazing family. I'm in a time I just moved. I don't do anything in moderation, so when you just change everything. So I've got a new wonderful family. I've just moved, and I'm winding down. I'm taking a sabbatical from private practice. And the reason I share this with you is because you're going to hear a different tone in my presentation today. And you're going to probably consciously see me stopping and taking a breath, because in interviewing, I just had this unique opportunity. In my patients that I've worked with for almost a decade now, I've just had the opportunity to ask them real questions. And especially those people who've overcome amazing illnesses and diseases, I just kind of wanted to know, in working with me, what was it that was most influential in helping you heal? I'm just kind of curious. And their answers have been really surprising. Consistently, it wasn't something I taught them. It wasn't a nutrition fact. It wasn't any of my lectures on avoiding toxicity or any of the things. I know they're all really helpful. But what was most healing was my ability to be in my heart and cause them to be in their heart, and to be able to be open and to be raw and to be real and to be present. And that gap that we created together was what they stepped into to heal. And so today, that's part of the flavor of what I wanted to look at, because in looking at epigenetics, this is the part that we often miss. It's really easy to get to the to-do list like Rebecca was talking about. I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. But what do we do about our stress and our feelings and our hopes and all those things? And so we're going to take on a little bit of that too. So it's going to be fun. And I'm just going to ignore the clock ticking at me. Okay, so we're going to start with, why don't we go ahead and pass out. We have a couple things to pass out. The first of which, as these are getting passed out, is everyone's going to get an earthing patch. And so for those of you who are new to earthing, I'll give you the 60-second what is earthing. And everyone gets one patch, so just be really mindful. Take your patch, and that's your patch for the weekend. So earthing is something that fits right into our conversation, because earthing is literally the power of the earth to heal our body. So what does that mean? Just like the sun, when we're exposed to the sun, our body produces vitamin D, it produces energy, it triggers a whole cascade of things going on in our brain. When we touch the earth with our bare feet, our bodies absorb energy, and likewise, it has a really powerful effect on the body. So what we're seeing in the laboratory is that inflammation dramatically reduces. Hormones come into balance. We see that pain subsides, that the blood and circulatory system is much more efficient and fluid. Almost every parameter that we've measured now in the laboratory, physiologically, when you connect to the earth, it comes towards normalization. So I look at earthing as basic, and it's almost something you can forget because it's so foundational. I look at it, it's like, I eat, I breathe, I earth. That's how it is for me in my life. So what you're tapping into here, these patches, are literally connected to a ground rod that's outside, and we're pulling in Earth's energy, and we're actually conducting it. So we're simulating you standing on the earth. And so pay attention to how you feel. What you may feel if this is the first time you've been earthing is you'll feel a lightness. You may feel energetic. You may feel that your sinus congestion goes away. You might feel that a pain you had in your back before has gone away. So if you have a pain, put your patch right on the pain site. That's a really great way. It's going to be very localized. If you don't have a pain, then put it on the bottom of your foot. And I would put it on the bottom of your right foot. That's where we naturally receive energy. Bottom of the foot right here on K1. You're like, where is that? Right on the ball of your foot. Right on the ball of your foot. Second thing we're passing around is a little worksheet. And I'm going to talk about how to use this worksheet, but that's for you. So you might also want to, while you're up and kind of shifting around, grab a pen too, because we're going to do a little bit of work together. So go ahead and grab your patch, put it on your foot or on your spot of pain, and then grab a pen and your paper, and we're ready to play. And there's people coming around, so if you have any challenges getting what you need, just raise your hand and someone will help you. Good, so for the sake of time, we'll just keep doing that quietly. And I'm going to share with you what I think is a really great way to start the morning, which is tuning into what really matters. I feel like a kindergarten teacher, like all the kids are like, and I'm like, shh. That was very effective. No, it's not really. Everyone's still talking. I want my patch. Give me my patch and my paper. Okay, so everyone take a deep breath and out. Another one. Good. Okay, so let's just kind of settle back in our space. Okay, so I'm going to share with you an event that was probably one of the most impactful for me this year. And it was, oh, my hair is it was that I was sitting in a room, and a person asked me a question. And they said, Christy, what really matters to you? And what they really said was, what do you really want? And I had an immediate answer, right? For those of us who are driven, we have a vision board, we have a clear set of goals. I'm like, Christy, what do you want? I want this financial goal, I want to help this many people, I want to do this, and And I had my whole list. And they weren't very impressed. And I thought I had an impressive list of things that I really wanted. And so the next thing that they asked was, well, why do you really want that? And I stopped because I really didn't know why I really wanted that. So I said, oh, well, I want it because I want to help people. And that's who I am. I'm a person who's a helper. And so I want to cure autism, and I want everyone with cancer to be able to have hope, and I want blah, blah, blah. And I did the whole list again. And I said, because this is what I want, and this is why. And they turned to me and they said, but that has nothing to do with you. Why do you What do you really want for you? And I realized I hadn't really asked that question. And that's a really, really sobering thing to find out when you have run, and you started out like a little girl on a farm in Minnesota, and you run until all of a sudden you're on the stage with David Wolf at Longevity, right? And you're like, woohoo, I'm here. And why did I come again? Because what did I really want? And what really matters to me? And so here's what I found out. At the core of all of this, I realized that there was a little girl inside who desperately, desperately wanted to feel joy and feel happiness, to feel ease in myself and in my body and with my family and my friends, to have a knowing that everything was right in the world, that what I knew and the way I looked at life really worked for me, and this freedom and this liberation to just be who I wanted to be and live the life that I wanted. And I also really realized I needed a nap. How many people have come to that realization? I need a nap. Just put your hands up. We all need a nap. And throw in a hug too, right? And so what I found really powerful for me, and this is what I'm going to invite you to do, is to take a moment. Now, the place that in the past, this is not a new exercise, right? This is not anything new I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to ask you to do it from a different place. Because I've created more vision boards than I can remember. But it had always been created from here, right? I thought about what would be the right answers, what would be blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, I was just doing all those things to feel lovable, because that's what we all do, right? That's the only reason we do anything. And so instead, I'm in this deliciously
But my experience with Marjorie was, she came in and it was like the door flew open and everything Marjorie came, and and let me tell you about this. And my staff, I would actually tell them before Marjorie's appointment, take a breath. It's going to be okay. Because it was just this Tasmanian devil of Marjorie, right? And she had more energy, more words, more life than still to this day I have ever sat in another room with. And so we fought that cancer together for about 2 years. And she actually stopped the tumor growth. So in a disease that was impossible to stop, Marjorie, amazing Marjorie, did everything she could, and she stopped it. And she actually confirmed it she was monitoring, and she confirmed it was stopped. And she had an amazing life, an amazing husband, amazing kids. And I went, every year, I'd go back to Minnesota to visit my family for 2 weeks for Christmas. And while I was gone, Marjorie forgot what she knew. And so she got chemotherapy and radiation while I was gone. And I got a phone call to come back from Minnesota early. And, it's amazing how that sits in your heart, right? And it was Marjorie's family. And they said, Marjorie is dying, and all she wants to do is to see you. And so they wheeled Marjorie in. And this was the Marjorie that 2 weeks earlier was amazing, right? I couldn't control Marjorie, and she was in a wheelchair, and they pushed her in. And she couldn't even talk. And she motioned for a piece of paper. And she wrote on it, what happened to me? And she died that night. And forever she's sitting on my shoulder. Because, when you're a practitioner, when you're a practitioner, you have to get to a certain piece, right? That everyone has their time, and everyone has, everything is well in the world, and we're just here to serve, right? But for me, it just really didn't feel like time for Marjorie to go. And she just forgot, and there wasn't anyone there to remind her. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is the importance of knowing, but also setting up a support circle for yourself, because we're all going to forget, right? And what would have made all the difference in all of our lives is if you have people, whether it's your husband or your best friend or your kids or the neighbor lady down the street or the checkout lady at the supermarket. I don't care who it is, but we have to enroll them in who we are, what we know, what we stand for, what we believe in. So when we forget, we have people built in to remind us. And so Marjorie and I together are going to give the rest of this presentation. And if I all of a sudden start out with a Long Island accent, you know it's Marjorie coming through and not me. Okay. So we're going to talk about things today that are much bigger than us, and in fact, have the opportunity to impact not only ourselves, but generations to come. So this is good stuff, and it's time for us to get into it. So if you look at the sheet I gave you, I am a simplist. So for those of you who are just getting to know each other, I love taking things that are really complex and then I break them down into just little simple bites. That's my thing. Simply Vibrant. What are the simplest things that make the biggest difference? And in all the years of working with all the clients and the wonderful colleagues I've had, I just keep fitting things into this model. And this is the first time I'm sharing with you how my brain keeps this all manageable. This is kind of like my file system. And I thought it'd be neat to share it with you and actually give you a worksheet so that throughout this weekend, you have a way to kind of sort this all out, because you're going to get awesome information this weekend, but a whole bunch of information isn't really going to be helpful unless you have kind of a plan, right? So that's what the sheet is for. So I created a little play on words. This is one of those things that woke me up in the middle of the night, and it's called Defy Your DNA. And so we're using DNA as our mnemonic. So everything that you're going to learn about that can influence your genetic expression can be boiled down to fitting into one of these three categories: detoxification, nourishment, or ability to adapt to stress. Now, my colleagues are going to do a brilliant job for the rest of this weekend teaching you so many things about detoxification. So I'm just going to give you a couple little tidbits that I do every day. We don't need to belabor that one. You're going to get awesome information. Nourishment, again, I'm going to give you a couple highlights, but you're going to get so much great information about that. So we're going to take on the adapting to stress, because that's something I think that is something that it's not as easy to talk about, and I think is really valuable and will complement everything else that you're going to learn about this weekend. So as Rebecca set us up, we're in this phase, in this time, and we need to realize that for that, it is a phase of time where genetics rule. So what's happening right now is that we're being tested for our genetics, and then we're told, you have the gene for breast cancer. What's the name of the gene? The BRCA, right? So you have that particular gene. Therefore, what we're told, your destiny is what? You're going to have breast cancer, to the point where you should, even though you are healthy, you are eating well, you're taking care of yourself, you have this gene and you should remove your breasts. Now, I am telling you this right now. We're going to look back at this time and we're going to think we were nuts. Because, I mean, absolutely nuts. It's like as nuts as when they talked about the humors and we used to draw all the fluids out of the body. We look back at that time in medicine, we're like, that was nuts. Leeches, right? All that stuff. This is equally nuts. But we don't know this, and so we're all taught, and I say this very respectfully because my focus is in natural medicine, but I have a great esteem for all types of medicine. So as we're talking this, I want you to hear it through the tone of what I intend, which is we have a time and a place for all types of medicine, and there is brilliant times to use conventional medicine, and there's a whole lifetime of every day who we are in our lives where natural medicine really makes the most sense. So we have this thing right now where we're testing everything, and it's coming out of the Human Genome Project. How many people have heard about the Human Genome Project? We have. And then you hear about it, and then you don't really hear anything else about it, right? Like you heard that they did it, and then you don't really hear anything. And the reason why is they spent billions and billions of dollars mapping out all of the genes that are in the human body, thinking that if we could find every single gene that causes every single disease, then we could do something about those genetics and we could flip it and we could cure all these illnesses, right? But you know what they found out? We're very, very similar. They started the project and the project was done in a very short period of time because we are genetically very, very similar to chimps, to rats, to pigs, to plants. We're not that different genetically. And so it got very quiet. The Human Genome Project got very quiet. And so what they found out, what makes us different than a pig, is not so much our DNA, it's not so much our genes, it is which of our genes are turned on. So at any given point in time, you got half of your genes from your mom, half from your dad. We could get more specific, but we're just gonna talk about it conversationally. And of all of those possibilities that you got from your parents, at any given time, they estimate about 5% of them are actually working. They're actually on. And what controls whether a gene is on or off is this whole field of epigenetics. Epi means above, so we're talking about what's above the genes. So you need to know that the playground that we're talking about right now is literally more powerful than your genetics. Epi above your genes. What we're going to talk about today is more powerful for your health than actually what you inherited. Is that sinking? Do you guys get that? Okay. So the epigenome, here's the really good news. So once I learned about this, now I started looking for this for the kids. We really have the kids to thank for this with autism. Because everyone kept saying autism is a purely genetic illness. And so, which actually does not make sense, because if it was genetic, it would be the same, right? And autism is going shoom, and our genes aren't changing. So like within 2 seconds, we can know that that's actually not true. But it put us down this journey of trying to find out how could we turn off the expression of genes. Same thing for cancer. So the epigenome responds to 3 main things. Number 1 is your nutrition. Number 2 is your toxic load, your toxic burden. And 3 is stress. So, my fellow women and men, I'm really happy to see so many men here. It's really, really awesome. So, the good news about this is that we, mamas or wives, are in the role in our family that we directly influence this. We are the ones, primarily, who are deciding what our families eat, what goes in our kids' lunchboxes, what goes on the kitchen table, what do we buy at the grocery store. We're the ones buying the shampoo, or the lotions, or the creams, or the air fresheners, or all the things that could be increasing toxicity in our bodies. And this is the one we often miss, the woman of the household is the emotional metronome for the family. And this isn't make-believe. This is actually something that I found out by working with families with autism. When there was a child who I couldn't get through to, no matter what I did, I couldn't settle this child down, I would actually start working with the mom. And if I could help the mother to be able to release some of the stress, some of the sadness, some of the things she was feeling, and get her to a more emotionally stable place, the child would instantly calm down. So much so that I got to the place where I actually wouldn't work with a child unless I could also work with the mother. That's how impactful it is. So our roles, we talk about women's liberation and women's power. We literally have the power to impact the genetic expression of not only our children, but you're going to see in a moment our grandchildren as well. Woo! We rock! Okay, so this is how I break it down for understanding our bodies. So I think before we dive into how epigenetic works and what we can do, here's how I explain our body. And this is how I give this presentation to kids, and I think it's even better for adults because we think way too much about stuff. There's 3 reasons that we get sick, ever. Our body is a barrel. It's an empty barrel. And when our body fills up too much with what it doesn't want, that could be living toxins, bacteria, viruses, parasites, whatever, you name it, or environmental toxins, chemicals, pesticides, heavy metals, blah, 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 blah. We have too much and it starts filling up. Reason number 2, if we don't have enough of what our body needs, think of flimsy sides of a barrel, which is food, water, air, rest, movement. And number 3, when we squeeze that flimsy barrel that's almost full to the top, what's going to happen? It does what? It overflows. And that is what the mental kind of analogy you can trigger to symptoms, right? That's our pain, and that's our fatigue and irritability and our disease. And so in order to reverse those three, and I lump everything, I kid you not. So I could be sitting in the most complex neurobiology class, and I am mentally lumping them into these three categories, filing them into these categories, because these are the only three reasons why we lose our health or our well-being. And so in order to common sense, in order to regain health, we just need to reverse these things. It's really, really simple. Number one, we need to detoxify. We need to lower that burden in the barrel. Number two is we need to strengthen. We need to give our body what it needs to strengthen our structure. And number three, and most importantly, which we're going to take on together, we need to be able to have a pressure release valve. We need to let out the pressure so that things aren't building up. Does that make sense? Simple, right? And so as you're listening, both to me, and I encourage you for the rest of the speakers, just start listening through this really simple way for yourself. And here's the other thing. So now we're going to dive into the nuts and bolts. And this is the place where we could really easily go into our heads and start making a list of like, oh my God, she's telling me everything that she does in the morning. And da, 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 da. That's not the point. So take a breath through your heart. Take another one for those who have missed the first breath. Okay, so listening through what matters to you, because not everything I'm going to say, or David's going to say, or Truth is going to say, or anyone's going to say, you don't need to do everything. You want to do what's going to help you improve and build upon what matters to you. So when you hear something I say that will help with what matters to you, then write it down underneath the category. If it's not, we'll just buzz through it. Okay, first easy way that we can detoxify in our households is by using the Dirty Dozen. Who's familiar with Environmental Working Group? Awesome, okay. This is updated regularly. So these are the 12 foods that are most highly sprayed in the supermarkets, and the clean 15, the ones that are the least sprayed. So when economics come between you and a completely organic lifestyle, this is an awesome list to have in your purse. Second is a place that online database called Skin Deep, also by Environmental Working Group. You can search for the cleanliness of all of your personal care products. Anything you're putting on your body can be searched here. Amazing tool for you to be able to have an idea, and it'll also teach you which chemicals to look at. So rather than memorizing all of the poisonous chemicals, which I could talk all day on that, go here, look up your products, and you want to make sure that they're safe. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 things that I do every morning, every day, to be able to cleanse my body, keep it detoxified. Really simple. Lemon water, half a lemon squeezed into 6 ounces of room temperature, helps to cleanse the liver and gallbladder. That's right. Cleanse the liver and gallbladder. Skin brushing. Brushing your skin towards your heart before your morning shower is great. It stimulates the circulation, clears lymph. But you know what it's also really great for, ladies? Cellulite, exactly. Awesome for cellulite. Number 3, clean your teeth and meridians. This is a really important one. It sounds like a kooky one, but this might be one that you guys all want to write down. Oil pulling comes from Ayurveda, and it's a really old tradition. Traditionally, they did it with cold processed sesame oil. And what you do is you suck the oil in and out through your teeth, and it is cleansing your body. Now, it's cleaning out your periodontal, but it's also stimulating a detoxification of all of the meridian pathways of your body. What many people don't realize is that each of the teeth sit on a meridian pathway. And so it's really, now I'm going to share with you the importance of this. This is something I overlooked for years. Whenever dentists came up, I just kind of like zoned because I hate going to the dentist. And so I just didn't pay attention until this actually affected me. This tooth, my top right second back molar, I had an old root canal, and I didn't realize that it was infected. And so an infection in the mouth is the one infection that the body cannot fight on its own and win, traditionally. And so I had an old root canal that was reflexing, and I didn't know about any of this, but I started developing a lump in my breast. Now you can imagine what that's like when what you teach about is how to avoid cancer, and you're living a healthy lifestyle, and you're eating everything you should do, and I'm doing my yoga and my meditation, and yet I have this growing lump in my breast that is not responding to anything, and my pH is plummeting, and we all know what that means. And so I started pulling out all the stops, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And so I started doing more and more and more and more of all these good things, and it didn't help until I actually had a colleague of mine. I was doing a testing, and this tooth came up, and she's like, what's up with that tooth? And I said, yeah, I have an old root canal, and I need to get it taken care of, but I hate going to the dentist. And she said, you know what? I had breast cancer, and I had a root canal in that same exact tooth pathway. Because this pathway, I don't know if you can see it, it sits on the pancreas, the stomach, the breast, and the bladder. So one thing I want to just point out to all of us is, number one, make sure you don't have old rotting root canals. But number two, if you have been diagnosed with something, let's say a breast cancer or something in the body, check the corresponding pathway. I actually put a resource on the bottom here. It's just something I found on the web where you can do an interactive tooth chart. You can just even Google as well meridians and teeth, and you can come up with these type of pathways. So I got this taken care of. I had this tooth extracted and cleaned out properly by a biological dentist. Within 2 days, my lump disappeared. 2 days. Now, do I think it would have disappeared that fast if I hadn't been doing everything else that I'd been doing? No. I think all of that had prepped my body, but this infection was just constantly cycling in my system, and I couldn't get on top of it. So that's one take-home point I really want you all to have. Anyone that you love or you yourself, check old root canals, make sure that they're not leaking or infected. Second one I want to put on here for the men is prostate cancer. So many times I've seen that it's an old root canal in the first 2 front teeth. So if you have any issues with prostate, check those 2 front teeth, guys. Or for women, make sure your husbands check it. Okay, a couple things you can do regularly. Cleaning the colon, flaxseed tea is a great way to cleanse the colon. I realize I'm going to go through this a heck of a lot faster than you can write down. So I'd be happy to make this available for you. So everyone's like, yeah! And everyone's like, I said it was like steam was coming out of your heads. So I'll just make this available to Len and Rebecca, and they can put it up. So you guys can all, let's take a breath to relax and celebrate that. Isn't that good? Okay. Now everyone's like going to go to sleep on me. They're like, oh, I'll get it later. A great way to cleanse the kidneys is with watermelon seeds. Have you guys heard this before? This comes from Edgar Cayce. He's one of my favorite. He's one of the pioneers of natural medicine. In fact, he wasn't a medical doctor at all. He was a farmer. And he would go into these trances. And he has, I believe, the statistic is he actually has more cure rates than any other person who's lived to the earth. Edgar Cayce, check him out, Cayce. This came from Edgar. Watermelon seed tea, 4 tablespoons of freshly ground watermelon seeds. You make a tea out of it. You drink that for 2 days, and it does amazing things for the kidneys. Okay, so that brings us to how to nourish. So we talked about the first facet, how to detoxify and clean out the body. Now we're going to talk about how to nourish and strengthen the system. So the biggest challenge that we're facing, both for ourselves and for generations to come, is actually obesity. You know, of course, cancer is a big one, and that's what we've been focusing on, but a big factor to that is obesity. And so obesity is a contributing factor in 5 of the 10 top causes of death. And so I'm just going to show you some statistics, because this will blow your mind. Have you guys seen the Center for Disease Control? Have you seen this before? Okay, watch this quickly. Here are the obesity rates in the United States. So the top one right now is 10 to 14%, 1986, 87, 88, 89, 90. 91, we had to make a new category, 15 to 19%. 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, new category, 20%. 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 25% in the South. 2002, 2003, we'll keep going. Here we are today. It gives you goosebumps. Now, as women, I want you to check in with yourself for a second. What is your brain doing? How many of us are having at least a slight feeling of feeling like a little bit bad, like, oh God, I should lose the last 5 pounds? You don't have to raise your hand. But we instantly are going to take information like this and make ourselves wrong, right? We're going to beat ourselves up with it. Oh, I knew I should have lost that last 10 pounds. We make it more stressful. The way to look at this is a really huge issue that no one's helping us with. No one's helping. They're making us wrong for, right? You know, oh, you should do this diet and you should do this exercise. And so this is one of the things we beat ourselves up as women more than almost anything. And you know what? What we're doing isn't working. This is why I wanted to show it to you. Not that any of us should feel bad about it, but what we're doing collectively as a society isn't working. And so perhaps there's a better way. And so there's lots of factors, and this could be a whole weekend ourselves in really looking at the factors that are relating to why it's so difficult for us to maintain a healthy weight. But what I want to point out is just a couple simple things that I've learned that can make a big difference, especially if you're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing and your body's not responding. Because I find for a lot of women that's the case, that you are doing the things and we are doing the things that we want, and then we're not getting the results we desire. So nutrigenomics is how our diet affects our genetic expression. And so there is a great researcher, Randy Girdle, out of Duke University, and when he has these cute little rats. And so this is why I want to show you this. Now don't worry, this isn't going to be like science class. We can understand this. This is actually simple. So in these rats, we have 2 rats here, and there's a gene. It's called the Agouti gene. Who's heard of the Agouti gene? Okay, so this is new. Good. I love this. So the Agouti gene is a gene that when it's on, it makes a rat obese, and it makes them prone to diabetes and cancer, and it turns them yellow. So it's really easy to see. We don't have to do any testing or anything. We know when the gene is on because the rat will be fat, it'll be yellow, and it'll most likely have diabetes and cancer. And when the Agouti gene is turned off, then the rat will be skinny and brown. Okay, so everyone clear on what the Agouti gene is? Because the next slide is a mind blower. Now, what turns on or off genes is something called a methyl group. And you don't need to remember that, but the reason I want you to know that is when you eat foods that have more methyl groups, it helps you to silence genes like the Agouti gene, like the obesity gene, like the cancer gene, like the heart disease gene. We need methyl groups. They're like these little ping pong balls that sit on the outside of our genetics, on all of our genetic infrastructure. And they silence the genes. And so this is what it actually looks like. And the reason I want you to understand this is when we come back to this knowingness, right? I want you guys to feel so unshakable in your knowledge of the power of what you're going to learn this weekend to influence your body. You're going to be like, whatever anyone has to say, you're like, I am literally winding my DNA. So when we have methyl groups, and I'll tell you where methyl groups come from in a minute, but when we don't have a lot of them, you see on the top, our DNA unwinds, and so then it turns on. When we have a whole bunch of methyl groups, think of little ping pong balls, it winds really tightly, and so it's turned off. Does everyone get that? So there's not a lot of methyl groups, it unwinds, and it turns on. The methyl groups come into our diet, and it tightens and it turns off. And this is for every gene. Okay, so this isn't just a specific gene. We're going to talk about the Agouti gene, but this is any gene that you have inherited. Specifically, we're looking for those genes that are promoting illness and disease in your body. And since we're here at the conference, specifically cancer. So this is what they found in these rats. A mother that is fed a diet rich in methyl groups, her babies, almost all of them, the gene was turned off. And that's cool, right? So what that's telling us is that if we do our part to eat a diet that has a lot of these great nutrigenomic properties, we can impact the genetics of our children. But here's the mind blower. Without doing anything else, the next generation is healthy as well. So literally, what you're doing right now has the ability to impact yourself, your children, and your grandchildren's genetics. Isn't that awesome? Now, I know a lot of us are making ourselves wrong right now because my youngest baby is 10 years old. I'm like, why didn't I know this when I was pregnant? How many women are having that thought right now? See, we all do it. We all do it. But the good news is the rest of what we're going to talk about, which is adapting to stress, and also what you can pass on this knowledge now to your daughters, to your friends, to people who are in that time of having babies. It's extremely powerful. So at the core, and I'm going to tell you, I promise I'm going to give you a list of what has methyl groups in it. If you make it really simple, each cell in our body, we have 90 million methyl groups per cell or so. I always say that because like 2 years from now, we're going to be like, yeah, we have 1.8 million methyl, like we just don't know. But as of now, what science knows is that we have 90 million methyl groups at birth. And on average, we lose 1,800 of these a day. So if you just do the math, what tends to happen is that we lose our methyl groups at this rate of 1,800 a day, which puts us at 65 years. What happens? At about 65 years, we're running out of methyl groups, and what happens, guys? What? Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes, anything that was carrying in your genetics is expressing. It's not like we all of a sudden got bit by the cancer bug at age 60, or we just got bit by this bug at this. No. What was once silenced, that we had the building blocks to silence, are now gone. And all these things are now unwinding. They're getting lazy. They're stretching. And all of a sudden, cancer is expressing itself. So if we did nothing else, but we simply reduced our loss of methyl groups to 1,200 methyl groups a day, which I'm going to teach you how to do, your lifespan, if we do the math, could easily be disease-free for 95 years. Is that exciting? Woohoo! Okay. All right. So nutrients from our food are turned into methyl groups. Here's a list, and I promise I will make this available to Rebecca so she can make this available to you, because we don't need to go through this whole list, right? But I'm going to key in on a couple things. So the great news for those of you who are in this room is a lot of things that are staples in your diet have lots of methyl groups in them. That's the really good news. Seeds, nuts, dark green leafy vegetables. Some maybe new things for you. Nutritional yeast is a great source of some of these tough ones. Sugar beets are a really great source of some of these methyl groups. So I'm going to show you a couple ways that I sneak in methyl groups into my family's diet, and they love it. So my favorite way to boost methyl groups, personally, is to take, after my main meals, a combination of betaine HCl from sugar beets and potassium, a live source of potassium. It's actually called an HCl detox therapy. And what this does is it helps to break down our food, because that's one of our big expenditures. When we eat cooked food, it's very taxing on our body to break it down, and so we expend a lot of methyl groups. So this is one of the simplest ways that we can lessen the load on our body. So number one is to support your digestion. Now, if you ate a raw meal, that's going to break down in your body, typically, depending on what you ate, more efficiently. Of course, nuts, seeds, some of these things need to be soaked or sprouted. But I always do this after I eat a cooked meal. So if you see me digging in my purse, you're going to see me digging out my HCl and my potassium. The other thing that it does, besides giving me methyl groups, helping me to support digestion, is this is continually gently detoxifying my body. So this is one of those things that kind of hits all of the categories, and it's a staple of my everyday life. Second is nutritional yeast. You want to get a really good source of this, but this has so many things that we're missing, especially when we're plant-based, when we're eating plant-based food. And the way that I sneak this in, my favorite way, my family's favorite way, is in mac and cheese. And so I put here kind of like this is how I do recipes. Notice there's no amounts. What I do is I take veggie broth, I take a little bit of butter or Earth Balance or whatever you use, you put it in. So think like you're making mac and cheese, about those same amounts. And then I put in Himalayan pink salt, and you combine that with your noodles, take it off the heat and add nutritional yeast, and then enough veggie broth so that it's like a nice creamy consistency. And I promise, your family will adore this. And you add, especially your kids, add some broccoli, and then you have a really, really well-rounded, complete meal. And so this is one of the staple ways that I get nutritional yeast in to both my family, but also a lot of families with young kids. This is a really, because kids live on mac and cheese. And this is actually a sniff proof. Even the pickiest of kids will love this. We'll go the other way. Okay, so in speaking about things we can do for weight loss, one thing that many of us don't realize is that sleep is really critical for being able to turn off the obesity gene. And I spoke about this at the last conference just a little bit, but it's worth repeating. There have actually been a study done on 1,000 sets of twins, and a shorter sleep environment, specifically less than 7 hours, we know triggers more expression of obesity genes. So this is like the best news on the planet. Like for all of us, everyone who's been killing themselves, like, I need to run another mile. No, you need to take a nap. You need to sleep. Isn't that the best news? That's the best. So sleep yourself thin. Getting less than 7 hours of sleep turns on the obesity genes. And specifically deep sleep increases a hormone called leptin. And leptin suppresses your appetite. And so you'll notice if you stay up late and you also start getting cravings, it's because you're making the opposite hormone, ghrelin, in your body, and so you start to get those munchies. So deep sleep increases a hormone called leptin, and that lowers your appetite. Now, what's really fascinating to see is what's primary, what's most important. And so in studying epigenetics, at this point, I have to tell you, I believe, if I was going to look at the importance of that little box that I gave you, I think the most important one is the adapt to stress, which we're going to get to right now. The second most important is the nutrition. And the third is the toxins, and here's why I believe that. So taking our same little rats with the Agouti gene, if they're exposed to BPA, what happens is it turns on their fat genes. And so they turn yellow, and they start gaining weight. But what happens when we take two genetically identical mice, and both of them are exposed to BPA, but their moms, one of them was fed methyl groups and the other one wasn't, this is what happens. While pregnant, the mother of this mouse on the left received a normal mouse diet, so the obesity gene was turned on. Even in the presence of BPA, it was turned on. The mouse on the right received a diet supplemented with choline, folic acid, betaine, and vitamin B12, exposed to BPA, but the gene didn't go on. And so what that tells us is our nutrition is primary. So what we put in our bodies literally is impacting our ability to be with the world and all the toxicity that we're surrounded by. So that's really great news. Dean Ornish is one of the pioneers in relationship to epigenetics and cancer. He's proven that by modifying the lifestyle, we can turn off the expression of cancer genes. And this is literally turning off the genes. So for those of you who already knows about this study, show of hands. Okay, it's worth explaining. He took 93 men. Now, epigenetics was very philosophical up to this point, and he said, you know what? We actually need to show that what we're doing can turn off the gene itself. And so he took 93 men. One group didn't change their diet. The other, he made very simple changes. Ate a plant-based diet. They reduced stress, and they exercised. And what they found was that prostate cancer was reduced by 70% in these men. And this is what he showed. I'm sorry, it's not showing up real well, but on the left side are the actual gene markers. And when the cancer gene is on, they're red. And then on the right, when the gene is off, it's green. And so this is something you might want to look up. It's a really great bit of information for anyone who's diagnosed with cancer, because you can actually see that these very simple changes, exercise, decreasing stress, and eating more plant-based foods, literally has been shown and demonstrated to turn off the expression of cancer genes. Tonic herbs, of course. If you in doubt, take reishi. There's not much more to say about that, and I'm going to let our dear friend Ron tell us all about our tonic herbs. And then for clean water, people always ask me, what's the best water to drink? I really love this resource, findaspring.com, so you can find a local spring water source near you. Okay, so we're finally to the juiciest part of our time together. And I apologize for going a little fast through the other two, but I really wanted to get here, because this, in my opinion, is going to be what makes the biggest difference and will help everything else that you're doing be that much more impactful and effective. And that is, how do we effectively adapt to stress, adapt to life, adapt to all of a sudden throwing on amazing events and having a 4-month-old brilliant baby girl. Let's just give a ground for the courage of Rebecca. Woohoo! How do we handle what's coming at us? Because in working with so many women, especially women with cancer, I have to tell you that I'm not convinced that it's primarily genetic, and I'm not convinced necessarily that it's an abuse of a lifestyle. But what I do see common among almost every woman I've ever worked with is this stress that lives within her, that doesn't have a voice, that don't know what to do with. And we all have that, so that doesn't make any of these women unique. But that is something that's so powerful for us to address together. So here's my suggestion, number 1. And it's kind of fun. It's going to give us an excuse to stand up and stretch. But the first thing, my fellow women, is we need to make it a whole lot easier to feel loved. When I muscle test women, especially women who have an autoimmune disease or cancer, and the concepts that trigger their body to go weak, do you know what they are? There's 2 of them. And I've never to date seen a woman with cancer who could test strong, muscle test strong, to this concept. Any guesses? It has something to do with love, right? You are loved. Now I can be loved, and now I can love others. Now I can be loved, and now I can love others. And I have worked with some of the most loving, extraordinary, amazing women. And yet when I test their bodies, they are not strong to now I can be loved and now I can love others. So at the core of all of this is that ability. And that's where we started, right? We took our breath. Let's take one more breath in through our hearts. We need to make it easier to feel loved. Our culture has really encouraged us to make it exceedingly difficult to feel the one emotion that we're literally dying to feel, which is the ability to feel loved. So on a spoof for Valentine's Day, I think I've done this once before. So this is what society will make us believe needs to happen on Valentine's Day. So we will feel loved only if our man shows up and he has the whole house full of candles. And there's a bouquet of red. God forbid he gets the wrong color of roses, a bouquet. And don't go stingy. It needs to be 12 or more. Otherwise, he doesn't really love me. It would be really great if violins were playing in the background, but a CD will suffice. And I will feel loved if he's picked the most romantic movie. Maybe something that, when we were dating, something brought back some emotions. And then a beautiful dinner was prepared. And then and only then, if there were candles and flowers and music and a movie and a beautiful dinner, then we'll feel loved. So here would be my suggestion. That we make this so simple, right? So we're dying to be loved. And let's just make up our rules so easy. So literally, if our man lights a candle, it doesn't even matter if it's just the lighting, the act of lighting of a candle, we're going to feel loved. We're going to be in the mood, right? Or we get a flower, or there's music, and you get the point. If there's any gesture of love, we drink it up, because that's what our bodies are dying, what we are dying, literally dying to experience. So making it really easy. Okay, so my favorite way to adapt to stress is earthing. And this is something, people have come up to me, they're like, why do you talk about earthing so much? This is one of those things in a quest for the simplest things that make the biggest difference for every person on the planet. This is still my number 1 because it works for everyone every time. And I'm going to teach you about it today in a little different framework because we're going to look at the impact specifically on breast health. And this is something that's never been shown before. So when we connect to the earth, for those of you who are new again, we put our feet on the earth or we connect to an earthing product. Our bodies absorb Earth's energy. What we're really absorbing is electrons. We're absorbing and we're putting all this energy to work. And then our body rebalances itself, lowers inflammation, circulation improves, hormones balance. But what I want to show you is specifically how this impacts breasts. So earthing does amazing things for sleep. Again, I'll post these studies for you. It does amazing things for balancing cortisol, which is our stress hormone. Here is a before and after of people who were, if we look at our cortisol rhythms, which influences our sleep and our stress, they're all over the place. The moment you sleep connected to the earth, everyone comes into complete balance with each other. For those of us who are struggling with belly fat, this is something to pay attention to. I just want to give you a little heads up. For if you are doing everything right and you're still really having a hard time around your midsection, you want to take a look at your cortisol. That's something that's really commonly overlooked right now. And so earthing is a very, very simple, effective way to balance your cortisol. Earthing has a calming effect on the brain. So in this whole idea of what can we do to more effectively adapt to stress, this is an actual brain scan. The top two are showing the active parts of our brain. Theta and delta are the parts of our brain that are activated during meditation, during yoga, during prayer. The moment you connect to the earth, you can see those parts of your brain become alive, become alert. So I think of earthing like my instant yoga. It's like my instantly brings me back to my core. Now this is what I'm excited to show you. So this is a breast thermography, and I could show you slide after slide after slide after slide of this, but I'm just going to show you one for example. Now we had an issue at circle number 5. It's up here in the upper left, and the reading here was 32.4. So for those of you who this is new to, thermography, in my opinion, is one of the most effective and underutilized tools for women's health. So you can look at the entire body, the entire anatomy, especially of the female. We can get the ovaries, we can get the uterus, and you can see the tiniest bit of an overgrowth up to 7 years before it would show up on conventional imaging. 7 years. And thermography is completely painless. It's non-invasive. There's no radiation. It's very inexpensive. Insurance typically won't cover it, but I've seen amazing things happen with thermography because the key is in being informed. So the moment you see that you have a baseline, there's an issue, you have now 7 years to work on that before you would have ever even seen a little tiny speck on your mammogram. So this is an amazing tool. So in number 5, you can see this particular woman, the greater the heat, the bigger the challenge in the part of the body. So we're at 32.4 degrees Celsius on 8 of 03. 3 months later, it was actually getting worse. She's up to 33.9. So the issue is actually in a stage where it's progressing. She started with an earthing pad. And what I'd suggest we've now, Clint has made a band that can go around the torso. And so it's a pink band. There's some orange ones too, that you can put right on your bra line and you can sleep with it. And this is the tool. If you could see the therms that I've seen, it is absolutely breathtaking what earthing does for breast health. So you can imagine when you're localizing, so it's great to lay on a sheet, but the moment you put the band on, it's localizing all of that anti-inflammatory, all the circulation, all of the flow in and out of your breast. And that is, stagnation is one of the biggest reasons why we have challenges in our breasts. So number 1 is we need to get out of our underwire bras. That's number 1. Number 2 is find a way to increase circulation. And so that's my favorite way, is to put a band underneath, right in your bra line while you sleep. So here's what this woman did. So when she was connected to the earth, you see immediately it started to drop down to 31.3. A month later, 31. We're still at 31. It's staying stable. It's staying stable. And at this point, now it dropped all the way down to healthy tissue. And the only change she did was to earth. Now here's what I want you to have the takeaway point. For your health, for any woman that you love, for your mom, for your grandma, for your daughters, in my opinion, of all the things that I've seen to either prevent or treat breast issues, this is the most powerful that I've seen. Now, combining this with all the other great things that we're doing. But you need to understand how foundational this is. So this is literally reconnecting you to the healing power of the earth, lowering the inflammation so that all the nutrition that you're putting in your body can actually get to your breast. When it's all stagnated, nothing you're going to do is going to work optimally. So getting a band around your torso. You can also put a band whenever you have cramps. It's really effective at putting a band around your midsection while you have cramps. It'll take them away within moments. Second slide I want to share with you is the changes in blood vessels when there's cancer present. So it's subtle to see here. It's a little bit difficult to see the differences. But the way that cancer grows is it grows blood vessels to it. It's called angiogenesis. And a lot of the most effective drugs now are anti-angiogenic. So they are causing these blood vessels not to grow. And if it was a little darker in here, what you'd see is that pre-earthing, we have all of the heat and all of that, but we also viewed the blood vessels to see how blood vessels were growing. And after earthing, it was dramatically decreased. So literally the blood cells that were feeding those cancer cells had dissipated. They weren't doing that anymore. And even the most specific effective drugs on the planet have a difficult time doing this. So I can't say enough how impactful, important I think it is that we get connected to the earth, whether it's you put your feet outside for 30 minutes a day or you find a way to get yourself connected while you sleep. Okay, so we're going to talk about, building on that, the most important emotions and how they affect our body. So this is a scale, a map of consciousness. It's by David Hawkins. Who's seen this before? The map of consciousness. Oh, I'm so glad we're talking about new things. So what David Hawkins mapped out was literally the frequency of different emotions. And so he found out that the highest frequency was enlightenment, and then peace, joy, love, they're all in this really high frequency range. But the lowest, most damaging emotions, the lowest frequency, were kind of surprising to me. It's shame, guilt, apathy or resignation, grief, fear. Shame and guilt being the big ones. And here's the reason I'm hitting this is because we need to look at, this is the world where culturally us women, we've kind of been corralled into this fear, shame, guilt thing, right? It's very easy for us to go there. Fear, shame, guilt, fear, shame, guilt. And in looking at how this affects our DNA, there's research, it's still fairly new, but it's powerful enough I wanted to show you that if this is our DNA, so our DNA, we have a total of 64 codes that we could code in our DNA, a variation of 64 codes. Up to date, most of us humans only have activated 20 of those 64. And part of that, they theorize, is because we're living so much time in fear. Fear is a very slow wavelength. See how it's just rippling through? And that's your DNA, so it's hitting these coding points of the DNA very infrequently because it's so slow. So when fear is coursing through your body, it's very slowly going through your DNA and it's not activating it properly. Love is like boom, 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 boom. Many more touch points to activate the DNA. So on a very real basis, these emotions going through our body are having a direct impact on the expression of our DNA. Many of us have seen this awesome work of Masaru Emoto. He's the one who showed us the messages in water. For those of you who are new, it's worth just popping up for a second. What he did is he took water. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is, again, in the realness of the impact of emotions on our physical health. This was a water molecule before offering a prayer, and then he took water molecule after offering a prayer. What he did is he froze the water, and then he looked under a microscope so he could see the crystalline structure. Look at the shape of thank you versus you make me sick, I will kill you. Love and appreciation. Now, why is this so important for us? What are our bodies primarily made of? Water. And so you can imagine how powerful it is when we are constantly giving ourselves affirmations of, I'm loved, I am appreciated, I'm nurtured. We're changing the crystalline structure of all the fluids in our body. So knowing this list, honestly, is not entirely helpful. It's just not helpful. I thought it was the most brilliant thing, and I started showing it to my patients, and they're like, you know what? That really sucks. Because now you're telling me, not only should I not feel this stuff, but now I'm feeling guilty that I'm feeling this so much. And how am I going to do it? I'm not trying. I'm not trying to be sad. I'm not trying to feel apathetic and hopeless and in despair. This isn't helpful. And so I just had to start getting really real. And this is where I love to step out of the laboratory and just step back into life and step back into your heart and then just look at what's really happening in the world. Use that as your gauge. And so I just started asking the question, well, what's really stressing us? And I started asking people, well, what's really stressing you? And then you realize there's only a couple answers, and they're always the same answers repeated over and over and over, right? We don't even have to go through them. They're boring. We're always stressed about the same things. And when you simplify it down, why we're stressed is because my current life circumstances do not match up with the way that I think people or things should be. Now, okay, just try this on for yourself for a second. So think about what stresses you and see if this equation fits. I am stressed simply because my life circumstances do not currently equal the way I think things or people should be. Is it true? It's true. Just simple, it's true, just in your life, true. And so here's something that I started. Now I'm going to share with you some of the things that I personally do on a regular basis to try to live in those top frequencies and less time in the low. One of the simplest things I started with myself and my patients. Because first I created this whole thing, like this whole process, and I did all kinds of tapping, and I did all these wonderful things. This was too hard. And so I just started thinking, what if I just give up the way that I think things should be and my need to be right? Ooh. Now, that might not hit you yet. Just consider this. What if I just gave up the way I thought things should be and my need to be right about that? And instead, I went into every moment in every situation looking for a gift and looking how I could give a gift. That's all I did. And this is all I asked my patients to do. Go into every moment, every circumstance, every conversation, looking at how you can give a gift and how you can receive a gift. And I can tell you, this is one thing that's changed my life. I know it's so simple, but when you start living that way, everything changes. And so I'll give you a practical example. So my son decided that he didn't want to do his homework. He just did not want to do his homework. So we'd say, Kevin, did you do your homework? Yes, I did my homework. He didn't do his homework. He never did his homework. And so there's a part of my brain that said, as a mom, I should be getting really upset about this. I should be setting up check things. I should be doing this. His teachers should be doing this. His dad should be doing this. Kevin should be doing this. Everything is awry, right? And instead, when I took a breath and I just said, where is the gift in this? What I realized is that he was just having a soul fever. He needed something different than what the current educational system needed, and he didn't know how to put words to it. And so instead of should and shoulding and changing and arguing with what the reality, the facts of the matter are, instead, we asked, what is the gift in this, and how can we give him a gift? And so what's amazing is it's a little dark. This is his new classroom. So this is Kevin's new classroom. He's studying with a Shaolin monk. And this is him in one of his classes, learning about the history of China, learning about the world, learning about what it means to be a human being, and learning all the other subjects. But he's given us the opportunity to really be able to spend time with our 15-year-old son. And so in an example of, we all face this every day, right? And maybe your solution isn't the same, but instead of arguing with what's so, arguing with what the facts, putting our energy into finding the gift and giving the gift. Cool. Thank you, Kevin, for the opportunity. Okay, so your brilliant brain. We've got a couple of minutes left. I wanted you to understand just a little bit of how your brain really works. Now, I don't want to take anything away because I know we have a neuroscientist here, so I'm not even going to attempt. But what I've learned about my brain, which I think is going to be similar to your brain, is that it doesn't have very many good things to say. Ever. Like, the moment I decide I'm going to do something, because just try this on. Okay, I am going to, every morning, I am going to start doing my smoothies and my yoga, and I am going to attract the man of my dreams, and I'm going to make a gazillion dollars, and I'm going to, right, so I'm going to have the life of my dreams. What's your brain saying? Yeah, right. How are you going to do that? You already tried that. You're never going to do that. Or maybe you can do it for a little while and it won't succeed. Or maybe you end up divorced again. Or whatever it is that, right? The brain, if you just look at kind of in your life what's real, has all of this stuff it's always telling us. And it doesn't seem to be very positive. And this really bothered me because I really pride myself in being somebody very positive. I'm always looking for the positive, doing the positive. I didn't understand, why is my brain constantly telling me crap that I have to overcome? Isn't that frustrating? Have you guys been frustrated? And that people tell you to think positive, does that help at all? No, not at all does that help. So why is it doing that? So here's what I found to be interesting. Our brain is here to keep us alive. And if you look at, depending on what theory of evolution you subscribe to, it doesn't matter. This is only a very small sliver of time in a very long timeline that we weren't in danger of being stepped on something like this or eaten by something like this. And so the brain is a very, very powerful survival strategy. And so what the brain does not want you to do is what? It doesn't want you to die, but even more important, it doesn't want you to change. Bingo. It does not want you to change. It wants to keep everything the same. It wants everyone to stay the same. It wants every situation to stay the same, even if your situation sucks. It wants, because it can handle that. It knows how to handle that. It wants things to stay the same. Now, that was a very effective strategy for the brain. Think about when we were in the caveman days. Curiosity was not something that the brain wanted to do. We're all safe in the cave, and our 5-year-old toddler is curiously thinking, what is outside the cave opening? And we go outside the cave, and wham! Now, we didn't exist at the same time, right? But the point is that our brains are programmed to keep us the same. So the power in knowing that is not to try to change it. You're not going to change your brain. The power is in recognizing it. So when you do declare that you're going to do something different, you're going to live life differently, you're going to see life differently, you're going to relate to people differently, your brain is going to spew a whole bunch of garbage, and you simply just get to say, thank you for sharing. That's it. That's all you have to do. Just don't listen to it. We spend so much of our life trying to convince and talk to that voice in our heads. That voice. The one that's wondering why I'm pausing. Can you guys hear it? No, I'm really serious. Can you all hear it? All day long. It's always talking to you. It's telling you things. And what I'm here to tell you is don't try to change it. Don't try to make it positive. Don't try to turn it into a cheerleader. Just recognize that what it's trying to do is keep things the same. And if you're a person who's about growth, about change, about evolution, then what's really helpful to know is not to try to convince that voice in your head. Just thank it for sharing, thank it for keeping you alive, and move on with your glorious life. So here are a couple questions that have made a big difference for me in this past year. I've incorporated 11 minutes of meditation into every day. Now, some days it's way more, but at least 11 minutes of meditation. And here are 3 questions that have changed my life, so I just wanted to share with you. Number 1, what if I hurt no one and no one has hurt me? How would my life be different if I hurt no one has hurt me? Number 2, what if I owed no one and no one owed me? And number 3, what if all is right in the world? And those are 3 questions to sit and just consider. And just ask yourself, how would life be different? Okay, so in wrapping things up, I want to invite the kids. What kids do we have here? How many kids do we have? Go ahead, come on up. Jaden, come on up. Do you have any other kids? Okay, so I want to leave us with just a very simple demonstration. And so thanks for helping. Okay, so this is about big things. This is about the biggest things. Okay, so Jaden, will you be my helper? A professor of mine taught me this once, and it's never left my side. And it's something that's just a visual that I hope lives with you forever and ever and ever. And it's about the big things. So the first question, Jaden, you want to help me? What's your first name? Savannah. Did I say it right? Savannah. Okay. Jaden and Savannah are going to help me. So the first thing is, Jaden, can you fill this up? And Savannah, you tell her when that jar is full. So she's going to put the eggs in, and you tell Jaden when it's full, Savannah. Is it full? Okay, so Savannah says this is full. And we all agree that this is now full. Is the jar full? Okay, in the eye of Savannah, is this jar full? Okay, great. And so the next thing we're going to pull out, okay, are dragon tears. So Savannah, we're going to see if we can fit anything else in here, okay? Go ahead. And you tell us when it's looking full, okay? Okay. How are we doing? Is it getting full? Okay, we're up to the top. She's a hard one. Now she's like, I know what you're up to. Okay, are we getting full? Oh, they're falling out. Are they getting full? Is it all the way full? Okay, so we're full. All right, so we're going to take a look now. Do you think we can fit anything else in there? What do you think? What? You're not sure? Okay, here we go. Okay, pour away. Okay, so as we're doing this with the kids, I want you to start thinking about what are the big things in your life that you want to put in your jar first. The biggest things. Because all the sand that she's pouring in right now are all the to-do lists. It's all the things that we're supposed to be doing, all the tasks, all the running and the running and the running. And the big things. Good. Are we full? Are you sure we're full? Okay, well, grab that glass, give one to Savannah, and pour it in and see what happens. See if we're full. That was awesome. Okay, so let's hear it for Savannah and Jaden. Okay, so now I have a question for you guys. So if we put the sand and the dragon tears in first, would we have any room for the big things? No. And so if we want to have, what do you think the big things in life are? What do you think I'm talking about? What's something really big in life? What's really important in life? Love. Love is a big thing. Anything that you think is big, Savannah? What else is big? Joy. Awesome. Family. See how kids, like, they got it. It's so easy. It's not hard. So the point is to put the big things into your life first. And so I'm going to encourage you to really think about, we started the day with what really matters. And you got clear on what really matters. And you're going to learn all kinds of things this weekend. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is to go back into your lives and put the big things in first. And then everything else can support that. So we're going to take we're going to take 30 seconds. Is it okay to take 30 seconds? And I want us to just think about, look at your list of what really matters to you. And then close your eyes. And I want you to fill your whole body with that feeling, with that love, with that joy, with that aliveness. I want you to really, really feel it. And sitting in your chairs with your eyes closed, I want you to start putting your hands over your head and waving as the music gets louder. I want you to feel that motion even more and more until it's coming out of the tips of your fingers. Literally, there's joy coming out of your heart. Freedom, liberation, knowing. I want you to stand up out of your seats and stretch as high as you can. Reach for the sky. You're exploding in joy, in liberation, in aliveness. Feel it. Music a little louder. And with that, I want you to take and put your hands over your heart, taking one deep breath. And sit back in your seats and know that you are loved. It's been a pleasure being here with you all today. Thank you. I'll bring you a present.
Please, another round of applause for Dr. Christy Garner. Amazing job.